young, old, black, white, rich,
Yeah.
poor, educated, uneducated, whatever, like figuring out how to be themselves and win something because the opportunity is just there. And so for all its faults in social media and the way that digital culture is, there is like an open opportunity if you want to do the work and figure out some stuff about yourself, figure out what you love to do, figure out what makes you you, and then just figure out how to do that, you know, in front of a camera enough that people will care. It really is an interesting time. And I don't feel aged out. I feel like in the music industry right now, if you just take care of yourself, you have good character and you show up on time and you're nice to people. I mean, you got to play, you got to be able to play, but like there's a million people who can play. There's less people who can show up on time and be nice.
What is going on, Armchair Authentic podcast family? It is so great to have you back for another episode. Our hope is to serve you with our stories and to have real life conversations with real people. Today, you are in for a treat because we had a conversation with a friend of ours. His name is Lee T. Baker. Now, if you haven't heard of Lee, let me just fill you in. He's a guitarist, a songwriter, a producer. He's an all-around artist who's worked with and shared the stage with platinum artists around the world, Grammy Award winners, as well as several up-and-coming artists in a multitude of genres. This conversation is really special, and we hope inspires you and encourages you, maybe in a new and fresh way. Now, before we get into the conversation, we do want to say thank you to every single one of you who have taken the time to rate and review the podcast. It really is great to hear from you. It is so encouraging to both Justin and I, and it serves as a great way to help people who aren't on this journey yet. Now, if you're new to the podcast, welcome to the podcast family. It's great to have you along. If you haven't already done so, could we encourage you to go online to Instagram and Facebook and to follow us at Armchair Authentic. That's Armchair Authentic. You can also follow us on X at Armchair Auth Pod. That's Armchair Auth, AUTHPOD. All right, now onto the conversation. You guys ready? Here we go. Justin, it is so exciting to have on the podcast today, Lee T. Baker. Lee is a guitarist, he's a songwriter and producer who has worked with and shared the stage with platinum artists, Grammy Award winners, as well as up-and-coming artists in a multitude of genres. Lee is also a coach to creatives, creative leaders, and creative organizations through MyFi Coaching, and even hosts his own MyFi podcast, where he interviews creative people about their journey, their process, and their work. Lee is also a solo singer-songwriter, and he's so excited. His new album, Stone Tiger, will be dropping on December 6th, 2024. He has singles like Astronaut, Let's Just Wait, The Night, A Murder, and others, all from the album, and they're out now on all your favorite streaming platforms. Lee, it is so great to have you on Armchair Authentic today.
Hey, it's good to be here. Thank you guys so much.
You know, me and Lee, we actually go way back. So he's not just someone that we're having a conversation with, but he's such a good friend to me. And we go back many years. And whether we found ourselves in the same city for an event, which we did many of those, we had some phone calls. We're always kind of catching up on what's going on in each other's life. Or me and my pal John Ross come crashing your guest room, which
Let's go.
You were always so good with that, bro. Good breakfast that he provides too, by the way.
Yeah.
But
That was all my wife. But yeah.
We got to give full credit to Jacqueline there,
Yeah.
but yes. But man, seriously, when I think of Lee T. Baker, I think of someone who, we've always said this with each other, but you're just a great hang. I love when we get to hang, bro.
Well, and back at you. And the intro, I appreciate. It always makes people sound like more important than they are. That's all fine. Like, I played a little music and I get to spend time with people. That's like the real intro.
Yeah. He has spoken from a very humble person. I've just gotten to know you over the past few minutes before this podcast. And I just have to set it up too, man. You know, you're talking to an artist by what they have in the background on their video shot. Now, I know we don't use video on our podcast right now. We've got several people going, man, we go video. We're probably not at any time soon, but I just want to paint the picture, man. I mean, like a true artist, guitar, leather chairs, the lighting, the vibe, the eagle shirt, the necklace, the hat, you got it going on, dude. So I know you're being humble, but you are an artist, man. You've done some amazing things.
If he's not wearing leather pants, he's missing an opportunity.
I don't want to know. I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
I'm not.
Let's keep it waist up on this one.
Yeah. And we'll get so much more into what Lee is doing, and especially as a fellow podcaster. That's why I make some of the jokes with him too. It's like when you watch the news feeds, and they got like the nice suit on top. It's always the jokes that they're really like in shorts underneath.
Yeah, well, I'm wearing shorts.
Really could be. That really could be Lee right now.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, I'm wearing a black shirt and shorts. Let's go.
No. I'm ready. I got ready. I showered for you guys.
Thank you, man.
Thank you. Only to find out it's not on video, right?
Yeah.
But just so our audience gets to learn about you, if we could back this up a little bit, really the time that I met you, it was, which I still am, but it was the time that you were on staff at a church, and really not just a church serving, but you were serving or leading a very large team, which was leading a very large congregation, ultimately stepping into some new endeavors, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. But could you take us there a little bit? Like, what got you into, even in the first part, being a musician inside the church?
I grew up in church. My parents, from birth, I feel like, we went to church. It was just kind of the Southern thing to do, I guess, at the time. But my mom's always been a believer in Christ and was super passionate about that. My dad too. And so, we grew up around it. But I never like really bought in. My middle school years were a little rough because I was playing in bands with people who were older than me. Mm-hmm. I tell the story a lot to people who ask, like, the first time you remember hearing music. My dad gave me a box of 8 tracks when I was a kid. I was probably like 4 or 5 years old, but I have like a vivid memory of this. And box of 8 tracks and an 8-track player. If you're young, you don't know what that is.
Yeah, you might have to explain that to some of our artists. They're like, 8-track? What is this? A train track? What?
Yeah, you think they're cool. They sell them at antique shops.
That's right.
But my dad gave me this box of 8 tracks, and it was like Zeppelin, Houses of the Holy, and Black Sabbath, and the Eagles, and stuff like that. And so I just remember sitting there listening, going, "This is amazing." And then for my birthday that year, my parents gave me Thriller on vinyl and
let's go.
A Duran 45.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know, I just fell in love with music, and so I was always around it. I was in bands when I was in middle school with guys who were a lot older than me, and so I ended up getting in some trouble in middle school and everything. And then high school came around, had some guys stop by and invite us to church, and first kind of like cool group of people I had met, no offense to anyone that I met before that, but that was associated with the church. And I was like, okay, these dudes are cool, and developed some lifelong friendships. In fact, my best friend, Todd, I met that night that they invited us to church. I think I was 15, and my son, his middle name is Todd after him. And so obviously made a big impact in my life. And then we started, just playing in the church. There were guys who were musicians there who were guitar players, bass players, stuff that were unbelievable. And so I just looked up to those guys and kind of, found a home there and playing and learning and growing musically and spiritually and all this sort of stuff. I met my wife. She went to the same church. We were teenagers and high school sweethearts and all that. Felt like, I loved music, and I, had a great experience in the church. So going into ministry seemed like a no-brainer. Went to Florida. We got married in 2002. Went to Florida to help start a plant church there, and was at that church. That church was about 2 years old when we joined up. Was at that church for 12 years. Came up to the Atlanta area to work for another church in 2014, and worked there for 8 years. And then made the transition outside of ministry. So I was in ministry for a little over 20 years, 21, 22 years, I guess, full time. And then made that transition out. But we loved it. The church that I was working at previously here, I still attend one of those campuses and just volunteer and play guitar and MD and stuff when I'm in town. And so we're still connected. The kids are there. Both of them play there, and my wife helps with child check-in on Sunday mornings and stuff like that. And so we're still connected, just in a more of a way that fits my introvert personality. You know what I'm saying?
Which is funny hearing that you're an introvert. You know, I know you, so yeah, I believe it. But from afar, you would never know because Lee is this. I mean, he's this musician. You see him on the stage, and when you see him, he's letting loose. He's either singing, he's playing. Such a phenomenal electric guitarist, such a creative. But when you see him from afar, you would not think introvert.
Yeah.
It's like
function.
You remember the Looney Tunes, the frog,
extroverted
hello
introvert.
My baby, hello my honey. And then you come
yeah.
around and it's just like ribbit.
Yeah.
You know,
I do the thing and then
I-
then go sit in my car in the dark for like an hour.
It's interesting to me, though, a lot of creatives and artists that I've met along the journey in music and our career and different things we've done, most of them are introverted. It's amazing. But yet you get on the stage and it's like everything that you're not all of a sudden comes out, you know, and it's like everybody thinks you're like this incredible, not you, but just as an extroverted human for what you're doing with your art. And then once you come off that platform, it's like everybody kind of comes back in their shell. So, oh man,
I always tell people it's less about the environment and more like where you get your energy.
That's so good. Yeah.
And I don't dislike people by any means. I love being around people, but the stage, I don't feel like I'm around. There's people in the room, but I'm not really interacting one-on-one with people. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And there's just a lot of energy in the room and it's cool, but I do enjoy like, you know, when things are over and like sitting somewhere quiet.
That's good.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know you just kind of talked a little bit about your journey and you there's probably so many micro details we could kind of just dive into, but some stood out to me about the power of an invite. I wrote that down because you had a friend that invited you to church, and it obviously was a life-giving moment for you to experience something different in a way that actually inspired you to obviously give a huge portion of your life to. And I mean, that's massive in itself. So if you're listening, you know, never underestimate the power of an invite to a friend, because obviously it's changed your life and put you on a trajectory of a lot of blessing in your life from what God has done in and through you and is continuing to do. But I'm really interested in that shift. You know, because I know you said you're not really in ministry, but I would ask the question, do you feel like you're more in ministry now than you were whenever you were, quote, in ministry for what you're doing on the level you're doing it now?
I mean, that could be the case. I'll give you the short version sort of that transition time in my life, and then I'm happy to expound on anything, but, and really in hopes that it would help somebody else who may be on, you know, a similar journey. 2019, I remember there was a huge event I was leading. We had 2 nights at our main campus or whatever, and Justin has been in that building before, and it's a big room. You know, it was a big couple of nights. It was packed. You know, a lot of energy. And I remember getting off the stage the second night and getting in my car and just having this feeling like I don't ever want to do that again.
Mm. Wow.
And it was just like, not really out of nowhere, but I think I was just kind of afraid to voice it maybe or something. I don't know. But I talked to my boss the next week and I was just like, man, I think I'm tired. He was like, man, let's get you some time off. I broke my pinky finger on my left hand and ended up having 2 surgeries like a couple weeks after that. So I wasn't playing guitar. I got some time off, which was great. Went home for Christmas for the first time in 20 years and went to Christmas Eve with my parents, which was amazing.
Wow.
After the first of the year, you know, still rehabbing and everything. And then that was the end of 2019. We all remember how 2020 got started.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so, you know, I thought, well, this is crazy. Like we're going to get a couple weeks off, you know, from running all these campuses and all this stuff. And then it ended up being way more work, and just relationally, there was a lot of tension figuring out, you know, how things were going to go and what ministry and all that stuff looked like on the other side of the pandemic and all this sort of stuff. And I just got thinner and thinner emotionally and spiritually. And I had a friend invite me to play at a show in Puerto Rico with these 3 classical pianists. And so it was kind of a Vegas thing. So we were doing like Guns N' Roses and Toto and, you know, stuff, covers and things. And then those guys would do a little bit of their stuff, but it was a lot of work and a great, huge venue in San Juan. It was really life-giving to go play a show like that again, because it had been a while for me. And we had somebody approach us about playing for this massive artist at the time. And that didn't work out, but it gave me a lot of confidence and just started opening up my mind to go like, man, I don't, something's changing. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Explored that a little bit more. The next year in the spring of 22, I went and I was just like, man, I think I'm done. to my boss, and they kindly were like, "Hey, why don't you just take a break for a little while?" So I did. Came back from that, and I knew I was done when I left, and I didn't know what was next.
Enjoyed the break.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just. I mean, I think I did. I don't know. If I didn't know, it was just out of fear.
Yeah.
Because that 20 years of paychecks. You can say you got faith.
Come on.
But brother.
Yeah. Talk about that, man. I mean,
Yeah, go spend a season self-employed, homie.
Yeah, no, that's good. Hey, this is real talk. You know, it's Armchair Authentic for a reason. We're really trying to get into the nitty gritty and the grind. But the steps of faith, you know, I mean, you're obviously comfortable. You're living whatever the church dream would be in some people's eyes.
It's true.
You're seeing, you know, what it is for what it is, you know, and trying to be respectful on some fronts. But like, talk to me about, you know, I'm hearing you say, man, I just felt like it was done. Can you dive into that a little bit more? Because I'm sure there's people listening feeling like maybe they're in the middle of a transition, or maybe they're dreaming about some things, or maybe they're in a hard place, or maybe they're right where you were and they don't really know how to filter that next step into, man, try to walk into, you know, no paychecks for a while, you know, because I think a lot of people like to remain in their comfort just for those reasons, right? Because we're human. But obviously something was going on in your heart and your spirit and your mind and going, there's more to this. There's more in my life, and I need to take a step. I don't know what that looks like, but I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that's kind of what I'm hearing. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I never wanted to be a leader. It was never in my desire to like be in charge of things.
Mm-hmm.
But I do really love creative people, and I don't think there's a lot of leaders out there who are good at taking care of creative people. That's not been my experience. That's not been the experience of most, if not close to all of the creative people I ever talked to. We're just a little bit different to lead. And so I think I kept getting promoted, not because I was some outstanding leader, but because I just cared about all the people that were on my team well. Right. And I just didn't want to be in charge. And then when you get in charge, you have to make leader decisions. And bro, I like write songs and play music and stuff. Like I didn't sign up to like tick off 25 people because I want to do this.
It's so good.
Like,
so good.
I just don't care. Like it's, you know, let's do whatever you guys want to do. I don't, you know, I just want to.
Right. No, this is true. I love this.
And there's a whole lot in, you know, there can be a whole lot in big corporations, modern church. There's a lot of majoring on minor stuff, man, because it makes people feel valuable, and that just creates tension. And I just got tired of managing that. To be super frank, there were some things during the COVID season that I feel like, you know, I don't want to like indict, you know, my church, but we're all going to disagree on things. There were just things I feel like we were kind of fumbling the ball on in our response to during the pandemic and things like that, you know, according to what I thought and believed personally. And not enough, dude. I love Jesus. I love the church. You know, all of us have family members who are like kind of a mess. You know, I've been that family member before in my family, you know, and all that. And so you know they're a mess, but they're family, so you don't give up on them. Good, and that's kind of been like my relationship with the church. Like, dude, the church is a mess at times. Come on. Like it's family, bro. Like you can't bounce. Like so. Perfect. Anyway, but I didn't have to work there anymore, and I wanted my whole life. I feel like I had processed most of my spirituality, working for an organization, which you can only process so much. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You can't start processing outside the boundaries of what the organization deems as safe.
So good.
Mm-hmm.
And so I never got to ask some personal things my whole adult life about what I really believe about some stuff. And I think some of that just started, you know, my whole adult spiritual life was on a platform in front of thousands of people. And I just wanted to be by myself and figure some stuff out and make sure I was leading my wife correctly and rightly, and that, you know, that our marriage was good, and that, you know, I was doing the right stuff for my kids and helping them work out their own journey and spirituality and how to love people and treat people and engage the world that's super different from them and all that sort of stuff. And honestly, when I would dip a toe in the music industry, what I would find out is people just didn't really like or respect people who worked in the church. Mm-hmm. And I had no credibility to, you know, and that just bothered me for a little bit, not because I wanted the credibility for myself, but I just love being around people who are different than me. Yeah. I really love it.
Yes.
And Justin knows me pretty well, so I hope you know what I mean by the statement, because I definitely don't mean any offense. But I love the church, but I've never been like a churchy dude.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I never like bought into the subculture. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I never, and not this bad that you do, man. Do whatever you feel like is what you're supposed to do. Like,
Yeah.
I just was never. I felt way more at home at other places, and you know, all of that, and all that's just started to wear on me. Integrity as an artist is really important to me. I love things that I can tell are like real,
Yeah.
and whether it's an artist or an author or whatever.
Good.
And so I feel that way about myself. And the minute when I walked off that stage in 2019, I said, if I keep doing this, I'm going to be faking something.
Yeah.
Wow, Lee.
And I also think that when you start feeling that way,
That's good.
you start faking one thing, you start faking the next thing and the next thing. And then before you know it, you've, you know, stolen money or ended up on cocaine or cheated on your spouse or like whatever it is that you like wear down your character through all that faking stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, bro, I'm not being a statistic. That's not me, dude. And so I had no idea what I was going to do. I knew through the help of a mentor, I love two things: making stuff and caring about creative people.
Yeah, that's
And so I was
good.
like, well, maybe I can make a living doing that. And changing careers at 43 with 2 teenage kids and a mortgage and stuff is like, you know, crazy. But
No, it is
my
crazy. And I was about to ask you how old you were, because
I'm 45
so
now.
you're 45 now. I'm 47. Justin's 46. And so it's interesting to me to see that at that age, some seasonal transitions happening in your boldness to step out into that. Man.
Yeah. Well, and everybody thinks being a musician is like not a real career choice.
True.
Anyway,
Yeah.
But at 43,
I know, right?
bro, people are like, "Oh, this dude, he's having a midlife
That's what I'm saying.
crisis.
Like,
He's
this is
about to-
midlife crisis all the way. Like,
he's about to buy a vet, and you know, like whatever, you know."
Oh man.
But it really wasn't that, and so I've enjoyed the last couple of years of like I have a mentor in my life who I really love. I got close friends in my life, you know, who I really love. People who've been rock solid supporters and help every step of the way and every major detail of my life. I've done nothing by myself over the past 2 years, but to get to the point where through coaching creative people and working with organizations and stuff, and then making music, that I can make a really good living. And then when I'm home, I'm just home. You know, I'm touring a little bit with an artist right now, but that just started like, you know, over the summer. And so for the past 2 years, I've really been working from home, producing and writing and doing coaching phone calls, and then doing trips to, you know, on-site coaching stuff for organizations that needed me to come in. And so I was really like home a ton. And even now when I'm off the road, I volunteer. My son's in the high school band, and I volunteer as a chaperone at band practice, and, you know, just anything to try to be around my family while I'm home. And my wife and I were talking this summer. We just, man, as long as we can make this stage of life work, we're going to make it work, you know.
So cool.
And as long as, she works in the mortgage industry, and she, you know, was home with the kids until my daughter went to middle school. And then she started exploring what it would be like to get back in the workforce, you know, outside the home and all that. And has just been killing it. She's super smart and super great and was super supportive, you know, during this whole season, all that. So I couldn't have made it without her. But yeah. And so now I've really enjoyed getting to process, you know, spiritual things and emotional things and priorities and all that sort of stuff with it's an artist's dream, dude. It's the artist punk rock dream to just like do what I want.
Well, to do what you
not
want.
not in a not in an egotistical way.
No.
I don't have to answer to anybody when I'm asking myself these questions for the first time in my life, whether that's like a spiritual thing or an artistic thing or whatever it may be. And so now I have artistic friends and, you know, spiritual mentors and people in my life, you know, and all that. And that's been great.
You have served the vision of an organization, if you will. You've served it well and made sure that people are taken care of, all this stuff. But there are still expressions in you that you're giving yourself permission now in this time of life to actually go pursue. And you're not saying that you're not listening to authorities. I mean, you already said 2 times before, which I love. You've got mentors. So you've got the care of people. It's just there's an organizational structure that you served for a while, and now you felt a shift, and that organizational structure right now might be Lee T. Baker, or it might be MyFi Coaching, which we'll go there in a minute too. But it's still an organizational structure. but now you're focused on, there's a lot more agency that you're getting to really fully explore.
Yeah, and the pace is mine. I think that's the thing that I like to control is the pace. Like I can kind of say yes and no to whatever I want. And that's been really great. I tell people like I have more like just peace in my life and joy and rest than I ever have. And I don't mean to like, throw a ministry career under the bus because I'm super grateful for and proud. I don't have any like, well, man, I should have done this a long time ago. That just wasn't part of it.
Right.
I'm grateful for those years, and the relationships I built and people that I met and people's lives I got to be part of. All that stuff's great. But I've just never experienced this kind of peace and pace and, freedom. And it's just been awesome over the past couple of years, and knowing that I can hit the reset button and, hopefully do this for long. I have no plans. The word retirement is just gross to me.
Yeah.
That's fine if somebody's planning. I mean, we're saving for retirement because that's what you do. But like, man, I want to do what I'm doing until I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know what else there would be. Somebody asked me the other day if I had a hobby besides music. I'm like, why?
That's a great answer.
I mean, I love football.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I love watching sports and stuff, but dude, I mean, I don't have off days.
Yeah.
You know what
Hey,
I'm saying?
Lee,
I don't want to.
I always joke with Rhett, and I'm like, I'm saving for retirement too. I'm putting it into this private school for 4 boys, but I just don't know if they're going to give it back to me.
I don't think the interest rate's going to be real great on that.
I don't know what happens, but I do want to take you back to a moment in 2019 because I love watching worlds collide. And so when I hear you say something, I can remember, I mentioned his name earlier, but one of my best friends, John Ross.
Shout out to John Ross. We love you. I know you're listening.
John Ross is, loyal listener and just one of my greatest friends. And Lee invited us to come hang with him a couple of days back in, I can tell you why I can timestamp it. It was late October 2019.
November 6th was that event.
Oh my God.
Wow.
It was like a month after that.
Oh my
right?
gosh. Okay. So Lee, I'm here. I mean, there's some of these defining moments for me. I remember we get there, me and John Ross, we go, you're having a rehearsal. I had recently just made a decision to step out of something I had been in for a long time.
Yeah, I remember that.
And it was very much like what you do for your church. It's what I was doing for my church. And I had just made the decision to step out. But here I am with you guys I was doing like a little coaching consulting thing with your worship staff. And you began singing a song with your team, just rehearsing. And it wasn't like just a rehearsal, Rick, because one thing about Lee is when he plays a song, it's all his emotion going into it. Like it's not just rehearsal. He sings. Yeah. You're feeling him sing the song, and I can count on a within one hand. How many times this has happened to me, and this was one of them. You began singing a song, and the band's playing, and you began flowing a little bit. Like don't let the song end. Once again, it speaks to your deal. Like don't put parameters only here. But you were just letting it flow a little bit with your team, almost like you were letting them be ministered to a moment. Like this is not just about learning a song for rehearsal. And I just remember I was overwhelmed with emotion, and I sat on the ground and I just began weeping, putting my head, just laying them on my knees and just weeping. And it's like I can't control it. And here's the only definition I had in that moment. It was almost like letting go of something that is so important to you that you don't know how you're going to function once you let go of it. And that was me. I was letting this thing go, and your song was actually ministering to me, and it was what I needed, because it would have literally been the next day I'm doing a session with your team, and I had like a 10-minute break before I was going back on. And I got the official call from HR to make that transition to the next deal. And I literally verbally agree. And I go to the email and sign the transition as I walk back in to go do the second session for your team. And so when you're talking about the hearts that are connected, you're going through some of these similar emotions at that time. I just thought that was really, really cool, because even though you were feeling transition, your work and your anointing, if you will, your gift set as a musician was actually ministering to one of your fellow musicians out in that empty audience for a rehearsal. And that was a moment that I've probably repeated countless times when I've been talking to other people on monumental moments for yourself. And it was actually as you were singing that song.
I remember that. We went running the next morning with John Ross.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And I think John Ross maybe Was it? No, it's you that runs so much.
No, it is, but John Ross is the one who got me back into it. So he,
Oh, okay.
You got him into it, and then he got you back into it.
no, John,
yeah,
I can't take credit.
Oh,
I can't
man, I thought you did.
No, I can't take credit. John Ross inspired me to like up the distance in running.
Oh yeah.
Because the first time I remember, it's not long now, but it was a 4-mile run. And I'm practically about to throw up. And John Ross he's having to like stop because we're trying to run from this village to the next village in the city we live in. And I'm like, bro, please stop. Hold on. But after that, he's the one who got me into it. And so now, now it's like you can just run.
I still do too. I run 5 days a week and I love it. But I remember that.
That was awesome.
It was a good visit, man.
That was.
Yeah, it seemed like that was a pivotal time for a lot of people. And I don't really know why, if it was like a little bit of our age and experience and what we were doing and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I knew something was going to change that fall. I had no idea that 5 years later, I'd be sitting here doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And, and so I'm super, super thankful for it. Super thankful that, I had the opportunity to make that transition, I think in a appropriate amount of time, and not have to hang around too long. The financial part of that stuff is super scary because I didn't, I knew what I wanted to do, but to have to go out and do that work and nobody's holding you accountable and nobody's building anything for you. And, I spent a lot of days sitting in this chair, looking at this screen, like designing websites and talking to people about logos and trying to come up with a business plan and trying to figure out how to reconnect with people in the music industry that I lost touch with and build those relationships and all that sort of stuff, man. And I never could have imagined it would have progressed. I kept telling people, I don't think I was ever pushy, but I was definitely assertive because I was like, dude, I'm 43 at the time. I'm like, I don't have time to waste, bro.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
If I'm going to get in here and get this done, like I can't be like building relationships for 10 years, dude. I'll be 53 years old in 10 years. So I'm like,
which in the creative world
out.
Seems like forever old, for whatever reason. It's like, if you're not young anymore, then you've lost your edge. That's
well,
what's
funny though?
Yeah.
I've experienced the opposite in the music industry. Like I work with producers in Atlanta, doing like R&B and hip hop and pop stuff. And I play with this artist, Max McNown. Max is 23. Some of these producers I work with are in their 20s as well. Nobody ever makes me feel that way. Like,
wow.
I think that social media, for all its issues, and what it's done to society, like one of the good things it's done is like kind of destroy ageism a little bit, I think, in the creative industry. Because I have a friend who's been on my podcast. Her name's Dorothea Taylor. She's a 70-something-year-old drummer, and she's got like 2 million TikTok followers.
I know who you're talking about.
And,
dude, she's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, she's awesome, man. And she would tell you like nobody ever says anything to her about her age. And I know that's part of the thing is like, it's pretty amazing that this 70-year-old woman is, such an amazing drum. Like that shocks people, you know what I'm saying? Cause she gets on and she did like a Drumeo thing where she played like a Disturbed song or a Megadeth song or something. And people are like, whoa, this is crazy, but she's amazing. And watching her do that and seeing, if you scroll around TikTok or something, you'll see people, all sorts of people, young, old, black, white, rich, poor, educated, uneducated, whatever, like figuring out how to be themselves and win something because the opportunity is just there. And so for all its faults in social media and the way that digital culture is, there is like a open opportunity if you want to do the work and figure out some stuff about yourself, figure out what you love to do, figure out what makes you you, and then just figure out how to do that, in front of a camera enough that people will care, and man, it really is an interesting time. And I don't feel aged out. I feel like in the music industry right now, if you just take care of yourself and you have good character and you show up on time and you're nice to people and you like, it doesn't matter. People don't care. You got to play. You got to be able to play. But like there's a million people who can play. There's less people who can show up on time and be nice.
So true.
You know what I'm saying?
So true.
And so like I feel like the industry's full of wonderful people, but that's just what I've seen. Is it's not like what people thought music was in the 80s or 90s, where people were partying and all sorts of stuff. That stuff goes on for sure, and it's a good time and all that, whatever. But for the most part, man, people are out here trying to build. These people's careers are businesses, and they're trying to like build a business, and they want responsible, respectful you know, great, talented, encouraging people on the road with them. Bro, we play 40 minutes a night. We're on the RV or whatever, 12 hours a day. Like, it's way more about the hang.
Yes,
You know what I'm
it better
saying?
be, right?
I love what you said. I want to dive into something real quick that you were saying about what you're noticing is that people aren't getting aged out in the industry. It's like a fine wine, you know, it gets better with age. But what I also noticed you said is you were talking about integrity, you know, showing up on time, being kind. You know, obviously you got to be excellent at what you do. The gift opens the door, right? But at the end of the day, if you're not kind, if you're not in this relationally, nobody wants to work with you. So I'm thinking through the lens of the pastors that are listening, because we've got a diverse audience. We have pastors that are listening that are chomping at the bit to have a creative in their organization or in their church. And not only have a creative in their church, but to have creatives that can create a safe environment, if you will, a development of other creatives. So if you were to speak, obviously I feel like you have the equity and the platform to speak on this because of all your years in ministry at a high level, whatever that may mean to some people. But if you were to speak to some leaders and pastors who are trying to reach that audience, reach those creatives, what would you say to them to help them understand how a creative thinks and how to create something for creatives to thrive so that they can experience all these things within the church and be that expression as the church as well?
Yeah. I mean, I would first to the creative person, I would say, like, you can't ever hold the place that you work hostage to fulfilling all of your like creative desires. Like, if you're a graphic designer and you work at a design firm, if you're a musician and you work at a church, if you know what I'm saying, if you're a videographer and you work and do corporate education videos, whatever it is. I mean, I work for Max. I play acoustic guitar as my least favorite like thing to just sit around and play. I love playing electric guitar. But for Max, I play acoustic guitar and I love it. I don't need that one gig to like satisfy everything I'm doing. I have like all these facets and it's my responsibility to go find those facets of expression for myself. So first, to the creative, stop holding the business or the church or whatever you work for hostage to like fulfilling every one of your desires. That's not the purpose of that business or that church. That business has a mission statement. So does the church, your design firm, your whatever, like the artist you play for, whatever. It's not about you. And so like, if you want some stuff to be about you, that's fine, but you got to go do that stuff. And so like that's the first thing. The second, I would tell leaders specifically in the church, the pace of the modern church is destroying creative people. We traded like program-driven ministry from like the 90s for event-driven ministry, and it's killing creative people. And church leaders are complicit to varying degrees in the downfall of creatives in the church because they can't take their foot off the gas, whether it be for ego or numbers or whatever. And I'm telling you, if you don't take your foot off the gas, God doesn't need you to have 19 events a year. He doesn't need any of that stuff. And so it tends to be like a small circle of creative people, whether it be the designers or the singers, worship leaders, whatever, musicians. It's a small amount of people that leadership will trust with these big environments. So they keep inviting the same people in. What happens is you're 100%. It's like running a marathon or running those 4 miles that Justin almost died on. Like you it empties the tank.
Yeah.
And then you have to take a couple recovery days to get back to where you can run again. That's not being given to most creatives in the church. So then they start thinking 80% is full. Then they start thinking 60% is full. Then they start thinking 40% is full. And that chasm between 100% and wherever they are is where you make bad decisions. And I could tell you, unfortunately, 100 stories about terrible decisions because we just want to keep functioning at a pace that we just don't have it. And I'll tell you, one of the things, I've said this to multiple friends, so if any of my friends are listening, they would confirm. One of the reasons I stepped out was I just, like, Jesus's character still enamors me. Like, the difference between, like, being a Christian and believing in something else, for me personally, and I have friends who are Buddhist, Hindu, atheist, like all over the place. And I respect where they're at. For me, why I've chosen to follow Jesus is I don't think that anyone can outlove him. I think that I have the capacity and responsibility to love better than someone who doesn't follow Jesus. Now, I don't always do it.
Yeah.
But I have that opportunity and capacity because of my relationship with Jesus. The problem is when I was in ministry, I wasn't doing any ministry because I was uninterruptible. The pace was too fast. What I loved about the character of Jesus, part of it was he was always interrupted.
Yeah.
Most of the stories are about him like walking through a crowd. He was never with the corporate dudes.
Yep.
He was never with the government
Yep.
guys. He was never with those dudes. He was the most punk rock guy in like
Yep.
religion.
Yeah.
People would grab his his coat and they're like, hey, somebody grab my coat, and he would stay there and talk. I don't know where he was going, but it didn't matter.
Yeah.
We don't function like that. And so we're just not doing it in my opinion. And again, I don't work for anybody anymore.
Yeah,
So,
no.
in my opinion. And it's not a shot at anybody.
Yeah, I
man.
know.
I think if we felt like we had the opportunity to, which you give me the opportunity to tell a leader, dude, slow down.
Yeah.
It doesn't depend on you.
Come on.
It doesn't depend on your event. It doesn't depend on your ability to speak or whatever. Like, it just doesn't depend on any of this stuff. We're invited to be a part of something. We're not needed. Just the pressure of that. I'm seeing 6 or 8 friends in my mind's eye right now that I just wish could get a break, and they can't bail because they, it's a financial thing or it's whatever. But given the opportunity, they would probably bounce too because they're just exhausted. And they're at 40% and they think that's full. And every event has production. Every event has music. Every event has digital design. Not every event has all these other ministries going on within the church, but every event has those 3 things. And so those people are at everything and a part of everything and doing everything. And I can say that. 1, I was in it, and 2, I'm on the outside of it now. So if you disagree with me, that's fine.
No, you're
like-
speaking. Look, man, there's no argument with a person who hasn't experienced. I mean, at the end of the day, you've experienced this. For me, I've experienced this, and I know we can justify both ends of it.
I never want to take a shot at the church. Again, it's family.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not
That's
perfect.
right. Well, you can tell the way somebody says something.
Oh, yeah.
Me and Rhett have this phrase that we say, there are no villains. You're not vilifying somebody. You're calling something out after you've also kind of looked in the log in your own eye, if you will. When I'm talking to people, I let them know there's kind of 2 sides that you got to look at. Matter of fact, recently I was having a conversation of someone was really wore out. I took them through the whole phone deal, like your social media. I noticed that they were doing so much stuff. And I said, I don't want to discount what you're saying, but let's look at you real quick. We realized, man, you can actually free up a lot of time that you allow mental congestion and blockage to happen because you didn't have time for your family. You might go to that event and that was the straw that broke the camel's back, but you're not mentioning to your family the 2 hours that you were like death scrolling before that and actually not getting other stuff done. But
Totally.
once I have that talk with somebody and are you doing everything on your end first? What I have found too, they are doing their due diligence and they're working towards their self. But I look at something and I'm like, this is not scalable to function in life. What you're having to keep up with the demand, or even the leaders that I'm talking to and they're sharing vision about we're going to do this, this, and this. I listen to them, and because I'm coaching them, they've given me the permission to speak into them. And Lee, I'm in agreement with you. I find that a lot of my words back are, you can do that. And it's probably going to look really, really pretty and awesome. You're going to get a lot of popularity through this. You're going to kill your team. Just give it time. They're operating off adrenaline right now. And some of them probably medication to keep this up. Yeah. But eventually you are about to see the downfall of something. And I don't know what that is, but you're heading in a negative direction.
Yeah. Well, it's evident you've had the right relationships in your life. You've made good choices in that arena, especially had to have made an excellent choice with who you married. I have not met Jacqueline,
Absolutely.
but I could only imagine that she married you're uber creative. She's awesome. I'm the creative, and my wife and I have been married going on 19 years. And so I'm the creative, I'm the dreamer. I'm like, let's go do that. How are we going to do it? I don't know, but this is going to happen. My wife, we kid, like she wanted to marry an accountant, but she got the complete opposite of that. The ride that we've lived. But I'm curious, is your wife more of the practical, like rock, and you're the roll to the rock, you know what I'm saying? But like you balance each other out. So I'm curious how Miss Jacqueline was like, okay, well, we're going to take a step from, okay, here we go. We'll figure it. How is that on her? Like, before and after, pre and post is like, oh man, that's the best decision we've ever made. We got more time with our family. And
That's great.
how has that decision impacted your wife and your relationship with your kids, pre post?
Yeah. I think, I was talking to my mentor and I had lunch last week and I was telling him, I feel like, and I don't mean this arrogantly because I have so far to go, but I feel like a better husband, a better dad than I've ever been, because I have this bandwidth. And even though, we're touring a little bit and traveling a little bit now, learning how to manage that's obviously new to us. And so, we're learning how to do that. In the initial decision, obviously, like most people, my wife loves security, and that paycheck and that health insurance and all that stuff was like a big deal. But she too was just really tired of the same things I was. And I think she saw, the condition that I was in, and it was shocking to her, too, just in the beginning, like, what are we going to do? Are we going to be able to do this? Whatever. And, thankfully we've had great mentors throughout our life. And so we had margin in areas of our life where we could make that decision and kind of take a step out like that. And she's been super supportive, but she is very opposite. She's got a marketing degree. She's super smart. She works in the mortgage industry now, but she is very ones and zeros, very practical, not super emotional. And I'm super emotional, and I feel like I'm pretty 50-50, when it comes to being abstract and being concrete. And I think that's why I work with organizations and businesses and stuff well, but like, I don't mind communicating with the executives, and I don't mind communicating, with management or the people, work, the blue collar guys doing the job, or whatever. And so like, but yeah, and still to this day, we laugh like crazy just that we ended up together, and we've always, it's not something that developed. It's always been like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so she doesn't, I got this record coming out you mentioned earlier, and the singles are coming out now. Astronaut, the first single's out. The Night, the second single comes out September 24th. And then A Murder, the third single, comes out in October. And she's just like, dude, the social media stuff, like I told her, like, you don't have to share anything. You don't have to, like, don't feel like it's just overwhelming to her, to like expose yourself like that and like put your emotions out there, in front of people in songs and whatever. And so, so that's obviously, it was a huge difference, but I mean, she's really grateful too. Again, we didn't leave the community we're in. We didn't leave the church we're at. Yeah. We're just low key.
You make that transition, and you talked a little bit about it, but the coaching with MyFi Coaching, and that's MYFI, MyFi Coaching. What did that look like for you launching that? How are you getting clients? What is that clientele of creatives? Do you find that some of them, or even people you find that you're not necessarily counseling, but coaching people through some of the very hiccups that you found yourself having to regroup and rediscover about your life?
Yeah, in a way. I mean, the clientele is all over the place. I coached an employee at NASA. I coach right now a lady who leads she's an HR director at a copper wiring firm. Obviously creative people, designers, worship pastors, musicians, a guy who works in audio for movies here in Atlanta, several churches and nonprofit stuff like that. So it's kind of all over the place. MyFi, the name came from sort of not lo-fi or hi-fi, but MyFi. Fidelity is like clarity and faithfulness. And so like the idea that you could find, something that helps you find your own clarity so that you can kind of do what you feel like you need to do. And so that's kind of where the name came from. And talking to people about things in my creative journey, I find that I'm not a coach that has like a 3 steps to like this or 4 steps that. That's all awesome. And there's a lot of people killing it doing that sort of thing. And I've learned a lot from people who have more of like a program. Mine is just one-on-one, like reactionary, sort of like bring your problems, bring your goals, and let's talk about it. I find people who are super inspired who don't know how to plan and execute.
Yeah.
And people who know how to plan and execute who are just not very inspired. And we try to go the route of let's kind of discover who you are, like your character values first. Yeah. And then let's figure out what your priorities are. And then let's figure out what your goals are like inside of that. When I was working at a church in Florida, I got invited to serve on the board at a college there locally in their music technology program. And I had to give a talk one time, and it wasn't like a faith-based thing. And so I just talked about character and how creative people are known for like being lazy and disheveled and not on time and, all this sort of stuff. And so what if our character was kind of opposite of that? So in that talk, humility, integrity, and excellence became my life values. And I started talking to my kids about those three things. And when they were young, they didn't know what those words meant. And so I would teach them humility, integrity, and excellence as help others, tell the truth, and do your best.
That's so good.
And so I annoyed them with that when they were little.
Yeah.
And it's still to this day, because I think it's pretty opposite of what creative people are known for, in the world. And so, value, sort of character driven mentality has always been important to me. And so talking to creatives a little bit less about like what they want to make and a little bit more about who they want to be is a great place to start.
That's so good, man.
And then like, what's your priorities? Because you can go make this great thing and it may cause you to step outside of your priorities or your character to go make it. And so if we can figure out a way to figure out who you are and what your priorities are in this framework of your life, well, dude, you can make stuff for a long time. But I've seen creativity break people who don't have the foundation of understanding who they are. And that changes from season to season for creative people, I think. Maybe not your core values or whatever, but some of your priorities change, throughout your life as you age and changes and, you get married or have kids and kids move out or whatever it is. And so like you can do different things in your life. My kids are older. I wouldn't even be entertaining touring right now if my kids were in elementary school.
Yeah.
But like my son's going off to college next year and he's doing his thing and my daughter's getting older. And, when your kids are little, it's like a ton of work, but it's real simple. And when your kids are older, it's not as much work, but it's super complex.
Yes.
And so it's like really just like more conversations and all that. So I kind of can be away as long as I FaceTime, stay in contact, all that sort of stuff. So we're experimenting with that. I've told my kids both though, when this gig came up, I told both of them, like, if you ever raise your hand and go, Dad, it's too much, I'll drive home right then.
That's so good.
Like whatever. I don't, there's no way I care about anything as much as I care about them. So I'll bounce right then. And so anyway, helping creative people figure that out. And, I'm hoping 2025 is going to be kind of the, year I start framing up a book, a little bit about that. I've been toying with it for a little while, but I really just want to help creative people. And so what that looks like sometimes is talking about their team culture. Sometimes sometimes it looks like their personal values and talking through the whole process of discovering that. It's always different.
Yeah.
So it's less of a system and more relational, which means my clientele, like it kind of stays small. Like I have a guy I've been coaching for almost 5 years.
Yeah.
And clients all over the place, from Brisbane, Australia to Indiana to, Cincinnati to Florida, all over the place. And I love every one of them. I'm not super public about it. It's all been like word of mouth because I like it to be relational. I don't know that I would want, like, one of my mentors here, he's a coach to like huge business people. And he sits in his office and he takes 7 or 8 phone calls a day and just sits in there and he's constant. I don't know that I could do that pace. Like I would rather be super close to like 12 to 15 clients, friends, people. That's just my makeup.
That's
what he
right.
does is awesome. And he cares about every one of those people and he kills every one of those phone calls because he's freaking brilliant. And that's what he does. I'm just not wired like that. So like the coaching side of it is something that I do feel responsible and like I have a gift to help creative people. I have an ability to do that and I feel responsible to do that. And I see a lot of creative people sort of wandering around and trying to figure out how to accomplish these things that they want to accomplish and be who they want to be and all that sort of stuff. And so, I would do that forever and then getting to do that with the credibility of being creative myself.
Yes.
Like I'm working on a record. I'm working on an outline for a book. I'm, playing with an artist as well. And I'm working on songs and producing stuff for other artists and, all that sort of stuff. So I'm not speaking like this is stuff I used to do 20 years ago.
Right.
Like, brother, I'm in it with you. I'm trying to live this life too. So, anyway, I love the coaching, the podcast. I kind of took a break this summer from the podcast and from a weekly newsletter that I had been doing for a while as well. Not everybody can afford coaching because it's just one-on-one coaching. It's the nature of it. It's just not cheap.
Right.
Like it's time,
Yeah.
And I hope and believe that, I'm always giving clients, what they're paying for. But at the same time, it always bothered me, people can't afford that. So the newsletter and the podcast was just like a free way for me to talk about some stuff and give people something, where I can't just go, well, can't afford it. Sorry, man. Like, and ultimately what I would love to do is for my music career to continue to grow and become such a source of income and lifestyle for me that I can pick 6 or 8 people and just coach them for a year for free. And I don't even have to,
Yeah, man.
have that as that part of, my income or whatever. Cause I really would just love to take 6 or 8 creative dudes in the music industry or creative industry or whatever, and just help them figure out how to do what they feel like they need to do.
Yeah. Well, it's beautiful. And you've been doing that in such a, maybe not as systematic, and I have a name for it, but ever since I've known you, you've been doing that. That's just kind of in your nature, who you are. It is definitely your wiring. So stepping out from the job, the consistent paycheck, stepping into MiFi coaching, which it sounds like, man, what a fantastic product, if you will, for someone to really get an idea of who they are and how they can steward really what they're supposed to accomplish here. But what I love with you too, and you mentioned it earlier, is even the transition you made. You've always been a musician, but really as an artist. At this point in your life, you've put so much work into your music, but now you're actually releasing an album. And I want to turn our attention to your music, because you've released singles like Astronaut, Let's Just Wait. Your second single is The Night. And then you had a third one recently released called A Murder. And you've got others that are going to also be a precursor to the release of your album Stone Tiger on December 6, 2024. So first of all, man, I'm inspired by you, even just getting to hear this whole conversation.
Yeah.
But especially just as you've taken on this project and getting vulnerable and putting yourself out there. But what can we expect from these songs? And really, what inspired you to say, now's the time? Yeah. What gave you, most importantly, the agency to actually say, I'm now going to put in the time, the effort, the resources to actually see this project now completed?
So when I did leave my job, I started like looking around the music industry to go like, what opportunity is out there? Because the landscape had changed, tremendously, and even post-COVID changed and all that. And so I had some friends. I have one of my best friends here. He's been one of my biggest cheerleaders and encouragers and everything. His name's Nick, and he went to Berkeley. He's been in film composition his whole life, and they had just finished their first full-length feature film. And then he, does all sorts of incredible, super impressive musical things. And he, working in film, just watching him, learning from him, he's been a resource for me too, like just relearning things. I used to mix records a lot and just haven't in years. I used to produce and just haven't in years. Obviously, technology's changed, all that's changed. So having a guy like him and my friend Ronnie, who mixed my record as well, like as a resource, was great. And I started, dabbling in the sync licensing world, which is, if you don't know what that is, it's just like music sync to video of anything. So the music you hear on TV or films or whatever. And so I signed on with a company in New York. I actually spent about 6 months making 10 pieces of music and mixed them myself and everything. And then took those 10 pieces of music, talked to 3 different sync licensing companies, signed on with a company in New York, and started just producing like 90-second, 2-minute instrumental pieces for, like, if you're watching like CBS football, whatever, they throw to commercial and there's just like a riff or something.
Mm-hmm.
It was that kind of stuff. So I'd have to turn in like, a dozen versions of like a 90-second piece of music. Working on all that, I really fell in love with the melding of these two worlds I love. I love Americana singer-songwriter music. It's very trustworthy to me, that alt country, Wilco, Lucinda Williams, Butch Walker type stuff, Springsteen, that vibe. But I've always loved synth music too, like 80s stuff, synth wave type stuff, and even modern like indie pop stuff. And so I was like, I want to put these two worlds together. And in TV music, there's really no boundaries. It's just like they have to find the show or the transition that fits what you've made. And so you can kind of do whatever you want. So it was a great experimental playground for me to figure out that sound. And it really is like an electronic Americana thing. I've told people I call it Electricana. It's like this,
you heard that here.
Like this,
is coined here on Authentic.
Yeah,
let's go.
It's like right this there. Melding of those two worlds. It's like synth country. It's like I'm from Louisiana, dude. I speak the way I speak. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna like sing differently. Differently. So it's like this redneck accent over these Juno synths and stuff.
I love it,
and,
dude. Let's go.
And so. Anyway, so I started writing in 2023. I wrote like 40, 50 songs, maybe a little more than that, narrowed it down, started tracking in the beginning of this year. And my goal really was just the way that sync licensing works is you kind of have to have an artist persona and like start to build a fan base. And it just, that's the way it works. And I had been invited to a couple of songwriting festivals, but I didn't have anything of my own. I had been working on stuff for other people, but I didn't have songs of my own. And I like really wanted to go play these festivals and network with other songwriters and just share something. And then, so that was kind of the practical musical side of things. I did have all of these instances, and obviously I had been through a huge transition in my life, and there were just, emotions and ideas and things I wanted to express that were piling up. And so as I was writing, I noticed like a thread. There's this Chinese concept you probably heard of, paper tiger. It's like somebody who pretends to be strong, but they're really not. And so Stone Tiger is sort of the opposite of that, and having to like be as strong as you seem in a lot of instances of life. And so they're obviously like Astronaut's a song about having the courage to take that step that I did, and all the complexities in my relationships and marriage and life and stuff that came along with it. The Night is a song that's about that anxiety that keeps you up and what it robs you of and the things you really want, in your life. And, the dumb stuff, like you're laying in bed and you're like, dude, am I saving enough for retirement?
Yeah.
You're like,
that's not dumb stuff. Yeah, I hear you, man. I get it. It's life.
And then 6 months ago, I said something to Justin and he hates me. And now you can't sleep. It's like,
he hadn't called me back.
Yeah.
yeah, it's like stuff like that. You're like overthinking and you can't sleep. And so the Night is a little bit about how that affects the relationships around me and all that sort of stuff. And then a murder. Some people know this, but like it's not about an actual murder. A murder is like a group of crows. It's what we call like a group of crows on like a telephone line. And so that song is actually, each verse is about a different group of friends in my life. And what they've meant to me and just the strength that they provided me and that sort of thing. And so like all the songs have this like sort of thread of having to figure out how to be strong in different instances or appreciate that strength, throughout the season of my life. And so I'm excited. The record's, it'll be out on vinyl, obviously all the streaming stuff and all that. And I won't play out a ton. I'm going to do some record shop in stores and things like that. And I'll do some live streams and, things, but the goal really isn't to tour this record. It's really just to share the songs and hopefully for these songs to end up getting shared on TV, film, type stuff. And honestly, for me, it was just therapeutic to make a record. And I had friends, my friends Jonathan and Timmy came alongside and were just killed all the artwork. My friend Alex actually did the cover for The Night, the second single. And so like, I just had all these friends who were like, yeah, you should totally do this. And every step they were like, bro, this is awesome. And just this constant source of encouragement when you're like, dude, I'm 44 or 45, man, this is stupid. What am I doing? And, cause every artist goes through that, the cycle of like, this is going to be awesome. And then you do it. It's like, this is terrible. And then it's like,
it's reality maybe it's right
okay.
There, man. Yeah.
It's like, no, this is terrible. No, I'm terrible. No, like, you just go through this. It's still, I don't care how old you are, or how many records you've made. Like you're just making art and it exposes a vulnerability in you. And it's always scary. And I posted the artwork last night, and it was being recorded a couple weeks before, but I posted the artwork to one of the singles last night on social media. And I'm like, oh man, people are going to hear this clip and they're going to think this chorus, I should have rewritten that line. That's not, I'm like,
thank you for the authenticity on that. That could be a whole nother podcast in the future, man, because that is truth. It's authentic. It's real.
It's a plague.
It is. I mean, that's every creative's nightmare, but you're putting your heart out there.
Yeah, and I'm confident in it, dude. I love the record. I'm super proud of it. I don't care how many streams it gets. I just love the record. I'm super glad I did it. I'm glad that you guys are, giving me a forum to talk about it.
It's great.
Hopefully encourage other people to go make stuff.
Heck yeah, man.
The world just needs art, man.
Come on, all the way.
And everybody's so unique, and the world needs like your stuff, to get out there.
I love that. That's such a great line. The world needs art.
You better believe it.
So Lee,
your art.
Yeah. So Lee T. Baker, got to put the T in there, by the way. I'm doing that on purpose. Where can people find you online, socials, website? Where can they find you?
Yeah, ironically, Lee T. Baker everywhere. At Lee T. Baker, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all the stuff, and then leetbaker.com. Follow on Instagram. That's probably where I'm most active. Follow on Spotify, follow on Apple Music, all that good stuff. Or if you're one of the 4 people that listen to Amazon Music, there too.
One of the 4 people.
Yeah, I know. I have one friend. He like He's like hardcore Amazon music. I'm like, bro, I don't even know how they're still doing this.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I know, right?
I know.
It's so funny.
I'm gonna get like a letter or something now.
Yeah.
No, they don't care about me. My 2 streams on Amazon Music.
Did you hear what Lee T. Baker said about you, Amazon?
Yeah,
Jeff?
they don't care. Yeah,
We're going to have to edit that
No,
out because Amazon is one of our sponsors. So we might
That's
have I would love for them to be. Shout out
I
to
love some
Amazon.
Amazon.
Yeah, we love Amazon.
We're predicting
Amazon.
the
Yeah,
future.
I love Amazon.
Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, we need to be honest about
We're
how
trying
many
to get the
people are using that
algorithm.
music.
We're trying to get the algorithm to set this up. All right,
Amazon,
so
Amazon,
is
Amazon.
amazing.
Amazon's awesome.
Yeah.
Amazon podcast. Yeah, please follow along. Would
Yeah.
love to connect, and I love chatting with people about art and music and all that sort
good.
of stuff too. I have a link in my bio somewhere on some probably on all the services. There was a playlist that I created that was the inspiration for the production of the record. So there's all kinds of crazy music in there if you care about that sort of thing and just want a fresh playlist to jam out to. It's in my bio and all that stuff. And so that was super fun to make too. And then I spent 2 months just listening to that playlist before I actually started working on the record. The songs were written, but just not produced. And so it was really cool to listen back now and go, oh yeah, that had a heavy influence on this song, or, whatever. So anyway, but yeah, I appreciate you guys, man. Thanks for having me on.
Man, Lee, this conversation was rich. Thank you so much, seriously, for going in some of the places you say you haven't really ventured to verbalize yet. That's going to be so impactful to so many people listening. Just a privilege to have you on the podcast today.
Yeah, I appreciate it, fellas.
Yeah, and for everybody listening, go check out all of Lee's release singles. Set your calendar for Lee's first album called Stone Tiger. It releases December 6, 2024. Also, be sure to check out Lee's MyFi podcast. Once again, that is MYFI podcast. You can stream it on Apple and Spotify or leetbaker.com.
Lee, it's great having you. Good to meet you for the
Hey,
first time, man. Looking forward to hopefully a part 2 at some point in the future, man.
Yeah, same, man. Thank you guys for having me.
On the next episode of Armchair Authentic, a conversation with entrepreneur and owner of Yellowhammer Coffee, Jeff Roberts.
The dream was really always just a passion for people. People are really our heart. And so how do we do something on the people side? I did have a background with Starbucks, so I'd seen that community that you can build around coffee. So I love just the team building side and the leadership side. I never loved anywhere I was. So I was like, man, is there a place we could be that would be healthier than what I've experienced?
Yeah.
Is that even possible? Like, can that exist? So I had that churning in the background. I've got this food truck idea, doing it with coffee churning in the background. And it basically just kind of the discomfort of where I was in my life drove me to make a step to say, you know what, it's going to be now or never. I think what I did was I hedged against a regret. At the end of the day, I didn't want to look back and say, man, you should have just tried that idea. And so that was kind of what we did with the idea of, can we do something healthy? Can we make this healthy culture? And can we try this crazy coffee idea? And can we put those two together?
Hey guys, we're really looking forward to that conversation. But in the meantime, we'd love to hear from you. You can email us at info@armchairauthentic.com. Have a great day.